so if you have questions during this time, this would be the best time. I have to hop off and get on an audit meeting right at 10:30. Becky and our Mary are here to try to help answer questions. If we're going to need to log off around 10:50 today, so we're going to have to cut it short just by a few minutes. So I apologize for that, but we have some other needs for the Zoom today. We are going to request another license, and we have asked to expand this license to the maximum was 1,000. So I just want you all to know that. I know there have been some folks who've let me know they have tried to get on and gotten kicked out. So we're working on expanding, and hopefully that will be in place pretty quickly. And we're also expanding to another license. So I'm just going to talk kind of from just data for a few minutes, gang. Again, if you have questions, put those in the box right now, because I'll only be here from now until 10:30. As of today, this morning, we have across the state 114 children who have tested positive in one of our facilities that's been reported to us, and 144 staff. The staff have always trended higher than the children. I think if you've kept up with this, you may be aware that children apparently do not always have the ability to be the transmitters of this virus the way they are with others. Doesn't mean they can't get it. It doesn't mean that they can't transmit it. It's just their threshold for that is much lower, according to the science. So 114 children, 144 staff. I just want to say hats off to the early childhood community. I think that's pretty amazing. Jill, those are not active numbers. That is from March through today. From March through today. So the only active would be for the past 2 weeks. I did a run on that Friday, and I believe it was around 70 total were active, but I don't know what that is of today. Really active would be only in the past 14 days. And we do have that data, and I might be able to pull it up in just a moment and just tell you what is active. It'll just take me a minute to calculate that. This is from March through today's date. That's how many children have been tested positive, and that's how many staff. So, you know, a little over, not quite 300 across the board out of all the facilities. So I just want to applaud those of you who are in the field, who are watching children, who are cleaning and sanitizing and wearing masks and doing all the things that we always do and new things that we don't typically do to keep children and families safe. Thank you for that. We have a little over 1,600 facilities open with the capacity to serve roughly 137,000 children as of today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about essential worker applications. We have taken, as of yesterday afternoon, 2,048 essential worker applications have come into us. I'm not going to go through each detailed group, but I will let you know that we've approved 507 individuals who work in early care and education or education. So I'm really excited to see that 500 out of those 2,000 that we've received have gone to our own field to support working mothers and fathers, frankly, who work in early childhood settings. So I think that's wonderful for our field. We will continue to take those applications. We still have funding to be able to serve families. So that's for the essential workers. On the funding side, we have paid to date 13.7 million of the 41 million that we've received. We are processing, let me kind of talk to you about payments, because I think this is a little bit confusing, that we have supplemental payments for those of you who take vouchers. So for those of you who serve infants, toddlers, school-age children on vouchers, we've been paying an additional amount to your current rate for your facility. So all of that hinges on whether or not you're level 1, level 2, or level 3, and if you accept vouchers. So if you take children who receive assistance or voucher, you're getting an extra $10 for infants and toddlers, an extra $7 for preschool, and an extra $5 for school age. That is scheduled to expire when school starts. So August 21st would officially be the last day for that. We've almost paid out 8 million so far, and we had allocated 11 million. So we're pretty much on track to use all of that money. But I just want you to know that that amount is close to 8 million out of the 11 million. There are 2 different payments for cleaning and sanitation. There's actually 3, but I'm going to talk about 2 that if you've been open for the entire time, if you were open in March and you've only closed intermittently, either because of a COVID case or maybe you closed for spring break, you will have gotten, if you are not in Better Beginnings at all, you will get a payment for being open to help support your business based on your capacity, and all of that is on the division's website. And you will get a payment to support the pandemic procedures. So those of you who are not level 1, 2, or 3, just level 0, minimally licensed, will get 2 payments. If you're level 1, you will get 4 payments if you've been open since March. If you're level 2, you'll get 6, and if you're level 3, you will get 8. That's for people who've been open from March through today. If you are reopening or reopened in June, you will get, based on your level, at 0, you will get 1 payment. For level 1, you would get 2 payments. For level 2, you will get 3. And for level 4, you will get 4 payments. So we are processing a lot of payments right now to make sure we get everybody the number of payments that they are required to get. But if you have questions about that, because we don't pay from our division, it comes from the Department of Finance into your account or to your facility through DFA. And if you're not set up, and we do have some that are kicking back, in other words, if the provider doesn't take vouchers or nutrition or is not set up as a vendor, we are getting a few. It's a very small number. We will be reaching out to programs where that's happening. But if you're set up, they may also attach it to an existing payment that you're getting. So if you build for voucher children, then they may attach these payments to a warrant that's already coming to your facility. So just know that if you are concerned about the amount, or you're not sure if you've been paid, I've had several email me and I've been able to track down, you got paid on this day and it went into this account. So we can track it down to the minute. I'm going to put my email in the chat box because it's been very helpful to hear from you all when you've had concerns, and I've just had my staff working on those as you all have sent those in. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in since I'm going to have to get off at and for some reason I am now privately having a conversation, so let me see if I can get back to public, guys. Sorry about that. I'm sending it to Lacey. Lacey, I'm sorry, it really was meant to go to everybody, so I'll get Becky to work on that because I'm not set up as the host today, guys. So I'll have her set that up, but we'll get my email in. It's tanya.l.williams@dhs.arc. If you need to have any questions answered about payments, please send it to me. Thank you, Becky, or whoever put that in. I appreciate you for doing that. Again, we've paid out for the sanitation PPE. We've paid out almost $2 million. For one-time maintenance payments, we've paid out $2.3 million. Those were just processed in the last few days, so you may start to see those hitting your accounts. And it's based on your quality level, and it's based on your license capacity. And then for deep cleaning, for those of you who maybe have had a positive case or had concerns about a case, we've spent, this is a very small amount. Again, I think it's just exciting that you all have been able to keep the numbers low, but $19,000, a little over $19,000. So we're continuing to process those payments for deep cleaning and sanitation. If you have a positive case for a child or a staff and have to close a classroom or your facility, and you're sending in those invoices specifically for that one. And for essential workers, we've had billing for $2.1 million so far. So again, we've spent almost $14 million of the $41 million that we have out of the Child Care Development Block Grant in the CARES Act. So I'm going to go to questions. That's kind of just, you know, a little bit of data about what's happening from the number side, children and family side, to how many facilities are open, and then how much funding. So let me go down here. So good question, Debbie Mays, about how many children. So I think I told you all, we have about the capacity to serve 137,000 today. The point that we dropped to the lowest was in April, about mid-April, and it was around 80,000 children. So, you know, the capacities remained pretty high. Now, whether or not that many children are being served, we don't always know that. We don't pay for every child, as those of you who work in this field know, parents pay. So we don't always know how many you have in your facility if parents are paying. We could tell you how many voucher children, but it's hard to know that, Debbie, but it's really amazing that we've had large numbers of facilities who've remained open and that the numbers have remained fairly low from this time. So for those of you who are curious about what you will get, it is on the website. If you will go to the division's website and look, it's broken down and it's based on the capacity of your center, not your classroom. So however many licensed centers, if you have multiple centers, you will get that amount for each center based on the capacity of your facility. So I probably can get that right quick and tell you roughly. If you care for 1 to 25 children, it's $500. If you care for 26 to 60 children, it's $1,250. If you care for 61 to 100, it's $1,750, and anything 101 is $2,500. So if you're getting multiple payments, it can be more than that because you're going to get more than one, as I explained. But if you have questions specifically about any of those payments, just send me an email and we'll track down your specific information. So good question, Christina, about checking. I would screen children as they're coming on. I know someone had asked last time if a school has a case and they close down, would you still serve those school age children? That's certainly up to you as a provider, but you definitely want to be screening when you're picking up children at school. Yes, even though they've been screened at school, possibly you still would want to screen before you allow them to get on the van. I would highly encourage that as a best practice. So yes, there is still funding for maintenance cleaning. We just need to establish, for those of you who aren't sure if you've been paid, if you will send the email to my email address that's in the chat box, then I will check to see if your facility, we'll need to know your facility, the name of your facility and your facility number, license number, and then we can check that and let you know if you've been paid. Again, they're attaching those payments to other payments that you might be getting. So they're very efficient over there. They don't do separate payments for every single thing. So you could be getting it on your nutrition billing, you could be getting on your child, and it's probably going to say child care if it's coming from the block grant. So just so you know what to look for. And I think that the staff set it up where you can look if you're a voucher provider, you can actually review your remittances if you do vouchers. If you don't, then we'll have to work with you individually. But if you take vouchers, then you can actually go online into your system and see the remittances and what you've been paid for as a provider. And that's out on the website. Patricia and them put that link out there so that you would know how to do that for those of you who are voucher providers. And yes, vouchers are all children paid for through Child Care Development Block Grant funds. For those of you, this is a good question. How do we handle medical exemptions for masks for children ages 10 and up? I would just document that. I would have it if you're transporting a child and they can't wear a mask and they're older children and you're at your full capacity for school transportation, because we have opened up school age transportation to align with what school is doing, which is putting children on a vehicle with a mask on. But if you have a child that cannot wear a mask, you need to document that. You need to have that on the transportation or in the classroom or wherever that child is, so that if someone asks you about that, if the health department came in or if a licensing staff came in, that you could readily show you know, that information that this child, or it's somewhere in your office and available, that we will know that this child has a medical exemption. So thank you. That's a great question. The supplemental payments are for vouchers for those payments that are for CCDF children. Those are processed every 2 weeks. So we'll be processing the next payment probably Monday will be the first August payment, and then we'll process that final payment. But you know, that last week after school starts, we'll process the final payment. And just as a reminder, and I'll say this probably multiple times, that will end in conjunction with the start of the school year, those supplemental payments. So that will end on August 21st will be the last day that you can bill, or if you're weekend evening provider, you know, through that weekend. But once school starts on the 24th, we'll verify that with areas. And once school is starting, those supplemental payments will no longer be in place. If you have someone that you're trying to get vouchers for, if you will reach out to myself and I'll connect you with the staff. My email is in the chat box. But if you will reach out, we will have someone work with you. If you're not currently a voucher provider, there is a process, and we still follow that same process for vouchers. So please let us know and we'll try to help you with that. There isn't a level 4 payment, it's only level 3, but you could get 4 payments if you're a level 1 provider and you've been open since March. It's a little complicated, guys, but there are 2 different payments being processed. One is providers who have been open throughout the pandemic. Most of those have already been paid, but it's also based on your level. So for those that are level 1 providers, if they've been open since March, there are potentially 4 payments that those programs will receive, but there's not a level 4 payment. So thank you. If that was confusing to everyone, you're right. We only have 3 levels in Better Beginnings, but we are paying all providers. So there is a level 0 if you want to say those who do not meet Better Beginnings and just meet minimum licensing. So we are paying those programs as well. Question about the copy of the acceptance letter for essential worker funding. You are not required that information. If we've authorized a child, then that's your proof that that child has been authorized. If you want to keep documentation for your own audit and editing purposes, you're welcome to do that, but we're not requiring that. Randy, good question. I know you've reached out to me about the transportation restrictions for preschool age. We're working with the health department, and I'm sure Mary's taken a note of that. At this point, we are not, because we cannot put masks on really young children. We have not been permitted to lift that, but we will continue to work with them. If things change and the transmission of this illness changes, they might be willing, but at this point, we're not hearing anything that would suggest those will be lifted, but we will keep you guys updated about that. It's a good question, and I know it creates a little bit of hardship for programs. If you are eligible for CARES Act funding that I'm talking about, regardless of whether you take vouchers or not, and we probably have paid your program unless you're just not set up. If you do not know, please let us know and we will double check and make sure, because all licensed providers, regardless of whether or not you serve children that are on the Child Care Development Block Grant or vouchers, are eligible to receive some of the funding from the CARES Act. It's not the supplemental payments for voucher children, it's for the cleaning and remaining open and being able to get the supplies that you need to remain open. So yes, everyone is eligible for that. It's just differing amounts. So if you are not sure about that, Stacy, if you will reach out to me through email, we will double check. I'll need your facility name and facility license number. So a question about transportation. What would be the proper procedure if a child who is on the bus shows symptoms once at school? Do we send all children home who were on the bus with the child showing the symptom? If you're talking about school age transportation, then I would think you would want to notify all families that a child may be symptomatic, and if that child tests positive, you would want to make sure, and you probably are going to be advised. Let me explain something. I'm not the health expert. That's why the health department is lead on this pandemic. So they will be all over this question whenever that happens and you report it. They will advise us about how to handle that game. So it's a good question. But generally, and for those of you who have been kind of in this situation, they are, you know, generally closing, if you're following the pandemic procedures or requirements, they're closing.
For rollover kids. And
so please, if that happens on a school age transport and you're at full capacity, then yes, we definitely would want to make sure we advise all parents that, you know, maybe a child has symptoms and is being tested, and you most likely will, the health department will advise us to take some action. But we will work with the health department as we have been throughout to sort of help with that. Mary, anything that you would add to that from a licensing standpoint? I don't think she can unmute.
I think you've covered it, Tanya. Yes.
Okay. So we will work with the health department. If you have any unusual situations like that come up, definitely report it to us, and then we'll work with your program. It's a really good question. And let me just say, we have not seen every scenario. You all are going to see probably different things that we're all going to be working through, but we will talk about them to the degree that we can on this call and help each other out and help each other through those situations. But that's a fair question. That's a good question. What is your current procedure for picking up a sick child? I would think you would want to let, you know, it gets into this sort of who has this child if you're picking them up. And I think you would want to call the family. That's the other thing. You want to make sure you have all those numbers with you on that transport if you've never done that before, so that you can call that family and just say, I cannot pick this child up. He's running a temperature. Please come and get him at the school. I'll remain here with him, but I cannot pick him up and put him on this vehicle with other children. You guys are going to have to, that's going to be a whole new thing. I hope that's going to be a real small number and an outlier and it doesn't happen, but it's a really good question, gang. And so, yes, I would think you would want to have the phone numbers of all transporting children with you when you're transporting so that you can make those calls, because you don't want to risk infection to other children. And you definitely want to make sure that you have masks and that you keep extras so that you can put a mask on a child if they're having difficulty, you know, with something and you think, I don't want to risk exposure to myself and or other children. For any of you who are serving children on vouchers, if a child tests positive and has to be out, you will need to notify your family support staff. You can email me or you can email one of the family support staff that works with your facility to authorize children. We will pay for absentee. We will ask for some documentation, but yes, we're usually aware if you have cases anyway, you're reporting that to licensing, but we will pay for children during a quarantine if it's their parent or the child. So for any child that's receiving child care funds, regardless of what category, foster care, anything, if they are positive or if their family member is positive and they're having to quarantine, we will pay for that absentee for a short period of time, but you do need to notify the staff because we want to make notations in the system so that we can document and have a good audit trail in case there are questions about that. Nikki, I love that you all, this is why I love this field. You guys are all helping each other and I appreciate that. Mary, thank you for responding to all these questions. You know, the staff in licensing will help you work through any of that group size, any concerns you have about that. But Mary, thank you for helping out on that. So Joni, good question about teachers. Just so you all know, we have updated the essential workers and added educators, and I use that broadly. It's everybody in the education staff. So it could be your maintenance staff, it could be your teaching staff. So that's a really good question, but we did update that a few weeks ago, anticipating that we needed to take care of our public school folks or essential workers. Cassidy, that's great. You know, I think we put in the procedures, whatever your school is doing. So if Pulaski County is doing the social distancing, I would encourage you all. We did that because we anticipate that there may be some schools that will load buses and put masks on children. I've heard some of that. So if your school, you want to find out from your school how they're handling transportation. We're just trying to be in alignment. Be consistent with what your school is doing, and here's why. You don't want to load them up on your vehicle and risk transmission if they're not doing that. But if they are and they're putting masks on all children, then you're aligning with what they're doing. So it's just an area where we're all trying to be consistent with one another. It's a little challenging for those of us over in early childhood and over in K-12, but we're just trying to be consistent with what public schools are trying to do. So work with your local school, find out what they're doing, and try your best to maintain that. If you're serving multiple schools and they're all doing something different, reach out to licensing and we'll try to help manage that with you, or try to figure out the best possible way to work through that. We know families are going to need places to go, and you need to be able to get them safely to your facility. Public school, preschool, 4-year-olds, and part of our kids ride the school bus. Will they need to temperature check prior? We do have some language. If these are being transported by public schools and the parents have made that arrangement with public schools in general, whatever that school is doing, if they're not checking temps, we're not going to be checking that. I'm talking about transportation that the Division of Child Care is over in terms of licensing that we're actually monitoring. So we may need to clarify with your facility, but if it's transportation that parents have arranged, in general, that's really between the parents and the school, or whoever is making that arrangement. You know, the question about requiring for 4-year-olds, that is really, I mean, if you're a school district or a program and that's what you want to do, I'm not recommending that. I'm really concerned about all young children really under the age of probably 7 or 8 wearing masks, but I know that schools are going to have children in masks, so they're going to get used to it. I have concerns about really young children, 3 and 4-year-olds, because they're still learning how to breathe properly. If you've ever talked to a young child about blowing their nose, or they still don't really have good function with mouth, nose, and I just don't know how well they'll do. I think you can teach it. I think our children will learn, but I hope that we're not all going to spend all of our time trying to keep a mask on a 3 and 4-year-old. It's not going to be very much fun for any of us if that's going to be our job, guys. So, but if that's something that your program wants to do out of safety and precaution, and parents are okay with that, that is really up to you. We're not creating a jurisdiction for that, but you need to know that we don't have that in our pandemic requirements. We have nothing about wearing masks in the pandemic requirements other than for school age. If you're going to load that van to the full capacity, we'd encourage that you follow that, because that's probably what schools are going to be doing in your area. But just be aware of that mask situation, and be aware and work with your families about what would be appropriate. I've got a couple of minutes, guys, so I'm going to move through these questions real quick because there's a lot of messages here. A permanent voucher increase. We are doing rate increases. We are currently working on rate increases. So yes, there is going to be a rate increase. Just so for those of you who take vouchers, we are working on that right now. Janice Carter is on the call, and she's going to take over in a few minutes. So for those of you who are interested about environmental assessments, environmental rating scale, what's going to happen with Better Beginnings and ERS, Janice is going to talk about that when I hop off, and I apologize, I'm not going to get to hear it, but we've been working with Janice, and her team has an amazing plan for what they're going to be doing. I think you guys will be happy about that. So good question about shots. Please encourage, I think I mentioned this last time, we do know that there are lots of children who miss shots because of the pandemic. Please encourage your parents to get those shots updated. Clinics and physicians and the health department are trying to make sure that families know they are ready to give shots. In light of the pandemic, there's nothing at this point that should restrict people from getting those. So please do that. If you have some families that don't, just document that you have talked to them about it. Our staff will, that is a licensing requirement. So please know that our staff are probably going to cite that, but you will want to document, and our staff will take that into consideration. And we all know there is that pretty, we have quite a few children that miss their shots, but just please encourage families to get those shots updated as quickly as possible, and work with your local health department and local community to help that happen. If you can get the physicians to come and give them on site, that might. But we do know there are children who miss shots in the spring. I'm going to let Mary take that question from Ms. Webb about temperatures. I think we're encouraging that. We're not asking you to document, but we are asking you to take temperatures. But Mary, if you can take that, looks like you probably did. But yes, okay, thanks, Mary. She's already done that. Okay, gang, I am hopping off to get on another call. I just want to again thank you all for all the amazing work that you're doing out there to keep children safe. My email is in the chat box. Janice is going to take over and talk to you about ERS, and then Becky is going to close us out on our staff, and we will talk to you in a couple of weeks. And I will give you the full time and maybe a little extra if we can. So thank you, guys.
Bye, Tanya. Good morning, everyone. I think I've seen names and I don't see all the faces, obviously, because all of you don't have your cameras on, but I'm seeing a lot of people that it's sure nice to at least see names and connect with you all. These are challenging times right now, but you know, we in early childhood face challenging times all the time because we're raising, you know, we're participating in the raising of Arkansas's children, and that's a huge challenge. So, you know, we are having to make modifications, but we know that, you know, humans have a genetic code that they're pre-programmed through stages of development. These children are going to pass through these stages of development. We can't stop it. Just like, you know, you can't stop a child from, you know, crawling and standing and walking. And we don't really teach them to do that because their genetic code is driving them to do all of those things. But the experiences we provide can also maximize their potential. And so we want to make their experiences every day as normal as we possibly can and provide those things that their little bodies need. They need to move, they need to use language, they need to use their hands, they need to socialize because that's what their brains are wiring for. So, you know, we're here to help you to do whatever we can. As Tanya said, you know, we're not the health experts, but we certainly are here to help you to try to find ways to do the things that we know children need to be able to do. So with that said, one thing we are not doing, we're not going to be doing environment rating scale assessments this year. And many of you are probably breathing a sigh of relief because I know that you've already asked a lot of questions about how can we do ERS in a pandemic. And we know that would not be a good assessment. It would probably be a lot lower scores because we're trying to keep children safe. So yes, we are going to make modifications to our environments and to procedures to help keep children and our staff health and safety. So health and safe. We have for a number of years tried to move to what we call a continuous quality improvement model. Those of you who do get assessments, you've probably noticed that the report you receive at the top says a continuous quality improvement model. And what we want to do with that is, for those of you who are in Better Beginnings, the year that you have an assessment, that'd be your assessment year, and the 2 years in between, we would like to look at those as growth years. And so right now, since we're not doing assessments, we're all going to be kind of in a growth year. And we do have an opportunity that we hope that many of you will want to take advantage of. We use computer software when we do the environment rating scale assessments, and that company has a new online program that they've developed called Learn ERS. It's an in-depth look. They have Eckers and Itters already finished. They're working on Fickers now. It's a self-paced study. It looks at all of the items on the rating scale. So it's about 35 learning modules. It's set up to have the administrator have one portal and work with the teachers in the facility. There's a teacher's portal, and it would look at, having all of the staff participating. And then there's a coaching portal. So it would be a three-team approach here, looking at taking this course, and it is an in-depth look at the rating scales, but not as a scoring tool. It's looking at the why. Why are the things in the scale important to child development? And it has lots of videos. It has lots of pictures of best practice. If you're looking at the module on, like the Arts Center, it'll show you a lot of good pictures. It'll talk about why we look at process art instead of product art. It teaches like a child development course, and the coach would help you all, with working through what items might be most important for you to work on, answering questions. It lets teachers journal about what they're currently doing, what they would like to have more information about. It's absolutely a fabulous, fabulous opportunity. The downside is we only have about 3,000 seats for the program. And that, by seats, it means if you, as an administrator, have 25 teachers in your program, you would be taking 26 of those seats. So I'm not sure how many programs will actually be able to, put in the program, but it is just an excellent opportunity. So especially for those of you who are in level 1 trying to move to level 2, or level 2 trying to move to level 3, and would like to just have a course of study this year, you'll get a PDR credit for all of it. So you probably get all of your PDR credit that you would need. You would need to be thinking about contacting probably Dawn Jeffrey at the division, or Susan Underwood if you're an ABC program. There are going to be some programs that we are already hoping to invite to participate, because we do know that those level 1s moving to level 2s, might like to have this opportunity, and it would be an excellent opportunity. Some of you in ABC may have a lot of new teachers, and it would be a great opportunity to do this course of study. And it's, as I said, it's self-paced, so it's online, and we get you enrolled and get you started, and the coach would be working with you. In addition to that, though, we do want you to know we are still doing technical assistance virtually. We've done it with FaceTime. We've done it with Zoom. We are still here. If you have technical assistance needs, please contact us. We will certainly help you in any way we can to answer any questions that you have about modifications to your environment, how you might be able to do something that you want to do, but you aren't quite sure if COVID, would allow the process. And we are also still doing our workshops. A lot of our workshops, we're transitioning to be online. Those of you who are ABC know that we already have part 1 online, which is an hour course, but it talks a lot about making COVID changes to your environment. So those of you who are not ABC and would like to take that ABC part 1 course, as I said, it's an hour, it's on PDR, you're welcome to do that. I think it would probably help any of us out there that are trying to make modifications to the environment. So it's listed as ABC Refresher Part 1, but anyone can enroll in it that would like to. So know that we're here. Submit TAs like you always do. If you have any interest in possibly participating in the learners opportunity, please contact us. You can contact me or Dawn or Susan. We'll all work together on hopefully getting 3,000 people enrolled in it this year, and they'll have an opportunity to do this. So if you have any questions for us, my email is JS, you have to put the S in there, or my middle name, because there was already a J Carter, JS Carter, CARTER, at astate.edu, and I hope to hear from y'all. And who is it? Is it Becky that's talking next? I'll turn it over to you.
Well, hello, everybody. I know that Tanya's had to step off. We do have Mary Oliver that's on here if you do have any licensing questions for her. If not, we'll go ahead and we'll end our call this time. I'll be sure to put Tanya's email address one more time in that chat box if you do have questions specifically for her. And I also, Janice, thank you so much for speaking today. I've got your contact information there too for everybody. Well, it looks like we've reached the end of the question, so we're going to go ahead and end the meeting. Just a reminder, we don't have a meeting next week, but we will have one the following week, same time. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in.